this is Patrick with Deep Astrology, episode 2, and you can find me at deepastrology.org. That's my website. I'm at Deep Astrology on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. I just started a podcast a few months ago. Facebook at Deep Astrology, and YouTube the same. I haven't been putting up stuff on YouTube lately. I think when we start going through more of these shows, hopefully I'll be putting these shows up on my YouTube channel. So anyway, here we are, and I'll apologize up front because I'm not as prepared as I'd like to be. I'm in the process of moving. I did find a place, but it's been kind of a stressful couple of weeks. So I'm going to talk in general about some stuff going on in the sky, and I think starting next month, probably in the middle of March, we'll start coming out with shows where I'll do like a full monthly forecast, so that's my plan for, and I think we'll do it according to the zodiacal, seasons. In other words, not the calendar month, but say from March 21st to April 21st, that's when the sun will be in Aries. We call that Aries season. So that's my plan. The next episode we'll be doing a full forecast for that month, and that's going to be a big month. So you should try and tune in for that, find out when that's going to be, because we've got 2 eclipses. We only get about 4 eclipses a year, and one of them is going to be a big one. I think the one on April 8th is going to be coming right through this area. So just visually, it's if it's not 100% of an eclipse here in the Massachusetts, New Hampshire area, it's going to be pretty darn close to that. So that's a big one, both astronomically for our area and astrologically as well. That's going to be, I think, a powerful eclipse. There will actually be a comet visible during the eclipse. This is a very rare event, and I forget the name of the comet, but it has about a 70-year orbital thing, kind of like the Halley-Bopp comet. Every 70 years or so it'll show up, and it will be visible during the eclipse. I mean, it's pretty crazy. Just the rareness of that event is pretty astounding, and I'm not going to try and say what that means, because I don't think any astrologer really knows what it means. But if there are surprising events on or around that day, I wouldn't be surprised, because there's definitely some pretty crazy stuff going on in the sky, or there will be on the April 8th eclipse. And then we have a Uranus-Jupiter conjunction later in April, right at the end of Aries season. So a lot going on in Aries season between March 21st and April 21st, and I will be covering that in depth next time I'm back here in the studio. So we try and get in a rhythm here, get in a rhythm with the planets, because that's what astrology is all about, right? When we kind of get a glimpse into what the planets are doing, then we try and get in sync with the planets. I mean, that's my idea around it anyway. So I'm going to cover a couple of things that are going on this month. I mean, that are actually more long term, so they're not so dependent on weekly. What the planets are doing weekly. But one is Chiron in Aries. And the other one is Neptune and Saturn in Pisces. So these are all like long-term transits. Neptune spends about 14 years in a sign, and it's just coming up to the end of its sojourn in the sign of Pisces, which it rules. So, and it'll start shifting into Aries next year. And then we had Saturn come into Pisces earlier this year. And so, we're going to talk about what does Neptune in Pisces mean, and then what does Saturn in Pisces mean, and how those two go together as Pisces kind of finishes up his run in, as Neptune kind of finishes up his run in Pisces. And then Chiron and Aries. Chiron is with about 5 years into an 8-year run in that sign. And you might be wondering, what the hell is Chiron? So Chiron is a comet or an asteroid that hangs out around the planets Saturn and Uranus. It has a odd elliptical orbit. Sometimes it's closer than Saturn, sometimes it's further away than Uranus. So it's, sometimes it can zip through like the sign of Virgo in a couple of years, and then it'll take 8 years, to go through Aries. And it was discovered in 1977. And, generally, most astrologers cover all the planets up through Pluto. And I know Pluto isn't, officially considered a planet anymore, but we still call it a planet, we astrologers, because planet is a Greek word, and it means moving, like a moving star. So planet refers to the stuff in the sky that moves visibly. They can notice that it's moving. Of course, all the stars are moving, but most of the stars move so slow that we're never going to notice them. So Chiron was discovered in 1977, and Chiron is a centaur in Greek mythology, and he belongs to a class of objects that are actually called centaurs, by scientists. And they're basically a whole group of, like I said, either they're asteroids or they're comets. They're not quite sure what they are, that are hanging out in that area of the solar system between Saturn and Uranus and Neptune. And mythologically, Chiron is the head of the centaurs. So there's a bunch of centaurs. If you're familiar with the sign of Aquarius, that Aquarius is, Sagittarius. If you're familiar with Sagittarius, then you know that that is signified by a centaur. But I don't believe there's an actual centaur named Sagittarius. So it's just sort of a generic centaur. That is sort of the image that we know of for Sagittarius. Anyway, Chiron is the head of the centaurs, and he is a healer. He is a mentor and teacher. He teaches about healing. He teaches the arts of war, and all kinds of things, basically. So he was a mentor to different gods, to Hercules and Apollo. So he definitely has a very important post, you could say, in the Greek pantheon and in the Greek stories. And he was the son of a god and a mortal. And what happened was as what goes on in a lot of these stories is one of the gods is chasing a woman, and she's trying to get away from him. I mean, was she immortal? I'm not sure. But anyway, Zeus is chasing somebody, and she's trying to get away from him, and she changed herself into a horse, and he's still mated with her. And so, that's how we got this race of centaurs, this half horse, half human creature. So, definitely a lot of these Greek stories are come off a little bit strange to our modern ears, and you've got to kind of dig deep to find the meaning. So I'm not going to try and parse out the meaning of every little thing about this. But what happened was Chiron's father found him kind of monstrous, because he was half human and half creature. And so, Chiron, there was a lot of shame involved, and Chiron ended up going off alone into the forest and had more of a solitary existence, until he became a mentor and all. And then there's another story where he gets wounded, and he cannot heal the wound, even though he himself is a healer, because he's wounded by some kind of magical spear or magical arrow. And he can't heal the wound, but he can't die either because he's immortal. And so he ends up sacrificing himself. He changes places with Prometheus, who's stuck in some kind of horrible place where Prometheus can't get out of. So there's a theme of sacrifice there. There's a theme of a wound that can't be healed, even though Chiron himself is a healer. And I feel like I've kind of butchered the story up quite a bit. I would just go on Wikipedia and just kind of look it up and read through it. It is pretty fascinating, but one of the monikers or names of Chiron is the wounded healer, right? So he represents a wound in us which we cannot heal, or which is difficult to heal, and also he represents maybe a part of us where we have some healing ability. So, and this asteroid or comet or whatever, when it was discovered in 1977, really captured the attention or the heart of a lot of astrologers, because I think this idea of the wounded healer was really, it hit a nerve, because a lot of people in the healing or counseling professions are wounded themselves, and they got into those professions because they were trying to heal themselves, and they got interested in healing methods, and then turned out that they started helping other people. I mean, that's a very, very common story. So and I think astrologers can fall into that as well, that there are astrologers who are wounded healers, because astrologers are basically counselors, for doing people's charts. I look at it as a counseling calling. Maybe I won't call it a counseling profession, since I'm not a trained counselor, but I do look at astrology as a calling to do a kind of counseling that a lot of people want. So, just to make the point there, I think there are wounded healers, that are astrologers as well. So this Chiron figure, this wounded healer figure, really hit a nerve and was taken up by a lot of astrologers immediately. And, they find that he is significant in the chart, and, the Chiron works out in people's charts the way you think, he would, being named Chiron and having that mythology about him. And so, you might, if you're skeptical about astrology, you might ask, well, I mean, some astronomer named him Chiron, fairly randomly, and yet you're saying that the way Chiron works out in people's charts actually makes sense. It actually corresponds to this theme of the wounded healer. I mean, yeah, that's what I'm saying, and it's, you know, I know it's hard to believe. It's you have to have this, you know, you have to be open to the feeling that we're living in a kind of a magical universe, you know, to accept such things, and I'm open to that. You know, and you know, that doesn't mean that you know, I'm not interested in science too. If you want to read a fantastic book that talks about this, that bridges science and mysticism, check out The Holographic Universe by, I think it's Michael Talbot. I think Talbot is definitely the last name, but it's called The Holographic Universe. It came out in the early 90s, and unfortunately he doesn't cover astrology, but he covers you know, just about everything else in terms of like near-death experiences and you know, miracles and like psychic phenomena and healing, you know, like energy healing or distance healing, spontaneous healing, you know, healing through imagery or belief, all kinds of stuff like that. And you know, with the sort of the latest theories on quantum theory, and yeah, it's just a fantastic bridge between the scientific and the mystical. And so, and that was really happening in the 90s. Those fields were coming together in the fields of health and you know, psychology. And unfortunately, that's not, you know, I don't know. It's definitely happening, you know, but it's more underground. But it seemed like it was hitting the mainstream at that point. But I think there's been a big backlash against that. So anyway, that's your Chiron myth. So I was only going to go half an hour, and we're already down to like 12 minutes left here. So we have Chiron in Aries, and Chiron is conjunct the North Node. So just briefly, what is the North Node? The nodes are points that tell us where the eclipses are going to happen. So they're said to be very sensitive points. You know, there's nothing out there, but when the sun and the moon every 6 months or so hit the nodes, then we have an eclipse. So that's where what the nodes are, and I mean that's their real, you know, astronomical thing, but they're used in astrology as well. But they're the way that we predict eclipses, because the nodes will move around the zodiac, so we can tell where the next eclipse is going to be mathematically. So right now, Chiron is conjunct the North Node in Aries, and basically it just means that is getting activated. That Chiron in Aries, you know, it's been sitting in Aries for a number of years, and when things pass by, when things make certain angles to it, you know, they'll kind of activate that. So Aries is sort of our yang nature, you know, the masculine side of us. You know, it could be as a woman or a man. You know, that sense of us that has like agency and power, you know, to achieve and to go out there and get what we want. You know, that's Aries. And so Chiron in Aries means that, you know, it's addressing some kind of wound that has to do with that part of ourselves, you know. So where we feel like, you know, maybe we don't deserve to go out there and get what we want, you know. But there's some kind of wound to this sense of, I like the word agency for Aries. You know, agency is that kind of consciousness that you can make change in your world. You know, you need something, you want something, you can make a change in your world to go get it. You know, when you have Chiron in Aries, that's highlighting some kind of wound to that part of ourselves. And then the North Node is really highlighting it even more. So that is really up right now, and it was really actually up for me in the last week or so, and I just kind of in this difficult living situation that I'm getting out of, where I was renting a place from someone who became hostile for no reason. And, I was kind of looking around the stars to see, okay, what's going on in my chart. And it took me a while to find it. And then I could see that this Chiron in Aries was hitting a pretty sensitive part of my chart. I won't get into the details of it too much because, like I said, I didn't want to really go too long here, but let's just say it made sense where, I saw where what was going on in the sky right now was, hitting my natal chart. And yeah, as an astrologer, it would have been nice to see it earlier. I just was listening to a podcast, and another astrologer was saying that she's just total crap when it comes to reading her own transits. So we as astrologers, we have the same blind spots as everyone else does, and so it's difficult for us to give ourselves an accurate reading, So, I should probably get a reading from another astrologer from time to time. But I think it is kind of funny, that we'll miss stuff like that because it was like right in front of me, and it took me, probably close to a week to really see. Oh yeah, that makes total sense. Chiron in Aries, and so like this feeling of powerlessness. That's Chiron in Aries. Is powerlessness, and so and that will be kind of being highlighted in the next, I'm not sure when this is going out, but it's probably still in effect by the time this goes out, maybe in the next week or two. And again, it just depends. If these things hitting your chart like they hit mine, then you're going to feel them. If they don't hit your chart, you might not notice it at all, but you might notice someone else having an issue with powerlessness, and you can go, Chiron in Aries, and you could look up their chart and see if it's hitting their chart. So yeah, we got about 6 minutes to go because I think I'm going to stick to half an hour today. Yeah, maybe I'll wait till talk about Neptune and Saturn in Pisces because that's actually a pretty big subject. And they're going to be in there for a while, so we got time. And they'll be coming closer together, so I think, I will save Neptune and Saturn in Pisces until I can give them their proper due. But one thing I was gonna suggest to people, if there are people watching that, you're interested in astrology, you don't know too much about it, and you know your sun sign, but that's all you know about your chart. One thing you can do is, you can get your chart for free. A couple of places you could do it. One is the website astro.com, astro.com, pretty simple. And, you can get it totally for free, no credit card, no nothing. You don't have to give them any information except obviously you're giving them your birth date, and you do need your time, your birth time, to get an accurate chart reading. And you could also get it on an app. I use the app Time Passages, which I really like, and I believe you can download that app for free, and you can put your own chart in there, and then that's really great because it not only gives you information on your natal chart, but it'll show you what's coming up in your transits. You can go on daily horoscope. It'll tell you what's hitting you for the day, and also what's hitting you more like long term. It's got like your sort of daily, weekly astrological influences, and then it's got like long term influences. Like, because some of these transits can last for 2 or more years. When you're talking about like Pluto or Neptune. So yeah, it's called Time Passages, and the guy who made the app, he'd been doing astrology for decades. I think almost 50 years. So the write-ups in it are pretty good. I mean, and I don't think an astrology app can do what a professional astrology reading can do, which is like taking all of that information and really picking out themes and stuff like that. But I think it's a good way to go. But my suggestion is, either go on astro.com or Time Passages and find out your moon sign and your ascendant, which is another word for rising sign, but it'll say ascendant on the apps. So your moon sign and your ascendant, and just kind of memorize those other 2 signs. So now instead of 1 sign, you've got 3. For instance, I'm Capricorn sun, I'm a Virgo ascendant, and I'm an Aquarius moon. And I never quite felt totally Capricorn, but now knowing like I have the Aquarius moon, which is very, very different in some ways than Capricorn, it explains quite a bit. And the Virgo and the Capricorn actually go together pretty well because they're both earth signs. But play around with it, because if you have an interest in astrology, you probably have like a good general idea of like each sign and what they're about. So again, instead of thinking of yourself as the 1 sign, your sun sign, you could start thinking of yourself as the 3. We call them the big 3. So you have your rising sign and your moon sign and your sun. And the rising or ascendant is more like your persona. It's more like how you're actually just most comfortable acting like. And then your sun is a little bit more of a deeper part of your personality. It has to do with your purpose and your, it's what you think of as your conscious self. And there's like people, I think different astrologers will define the sun and the ascendant differently. They can be confusing because they are similar. One way I've heard it described is the sun is where you're going and the ascendant is how you get there. So I don't know if that helps at all, but the ascendant is like more of your persona. And then the moon sign is more of your deep emotional self, and it's how you feel safe. So it's like the yin or feminine side of your nature, whether you're a woman or a man. The moon is your yin side, and again, the sun would be your yang side, whether you're a woman or a man. So yeah, get your chart done and see if you can start, thinking of yourself instead of, I am Scorpio or I am Capricorn, your sun sign, as your big 3, and then try to identify, when you feel like, oh, I can see that was my moon acting out, or I can see that was my rising sign acting out. So try to identify in your behaviors, or the things that you like, or whatever, try to see if you can identify, oh yeah, that thing that I'm doing, that's much more my moon than my sun, and that makes sense, or that's much more my rising sign than my sun. I think, if you're wanting to learn astrology, that would be the best way to get started, is just to graduate from your sun sign to your big 3. So that's your homework. If you choose to accept it, only do it if it sounds fun. So I will leave it there. Again, I'm at deepastrology.org, Deep Astrology Podcasts, Facebook, all that. And I will see you next time, and we will talk about Aries season, which will be from March 21st, give or take, to April 21st. And that's, again, going to be a very big month for astrology with the eclipses and all. So this is Patrick, and I'll see you soon. Take care.